was born in California, both my boys were. And then as a little boy, he loved going to Disneyland. He loved going to the zoo. He did always have a hat, and he had ever since he was little. His first baseball hat was a Mickey Mouse hat. Got it at Disneyland. It was one of those you don't take off when you go to bed. So he slept with it for a few days until he realized that, you know, he could put it down and get it back in the morning and put it back on.
She was really good. She slept, you know, we were just really lucky and blessed that she was just a good baby, and she just loved to sing, and she would know every word to every song. She could sing it, and she was like 2.
He loved to read. I have pictures of him just like laying on the floor with a book, and he really couldn't read. This was at the point before he could read. He's really good at baseball. He could, as little as he was always the littlest guy, you know, and he could throw that ball and catch. He was a catcher.
She wasn't in a big hurry to drive, and I don't know why that was. I think she had friends that drove, I don't know. She wasn't in a huge hurry, but her first car was a red Mustang convertible.
Once Kyle started high school, he was around his friends a lot. I mean, there wasn't probably, I'd be lucky if there was a day at our house, that's after we moved here, that there weren't kids over here. He didn't have his friends down in the basement, and they were just hanging out, just hanging out down there.
They kind of had this group of kids that were friends from 6th grade on, and so it's a group of, I think, an evenly amount of boys and girls that were always together and did things together. I always laughed because we'd come home and there'd be 30 pairs of shoes in the foyer, you know, just because all the kids are downstairs, you know, hanging out, so it's kind of fun. So she came home her freshman year and said, "Oh, there's a really cute guy in my encore class, but he's got a girlfriend, but he's really cute. I really like him. He's really nice. He's funny." So, who's that? His name's Kyle. So that's the first time I heard about Kyle, was her right at the beginning of her freshman year. But he had a girlfriend, so that was that. But he didn't have her for long.
Kylie was a freshman and Kyle was a junior, and they had encore class together. He says, "I've got my eye on this girl," and he said, "Her name's Kylie." And they all said, "Kylie? That's almost your name." It wasn't too long after that, I think, that I met her. They were inseparable.
You know, Kylie and Kyle were, you know, your typical high school sweethearts. They epitomized that, you know, even though they were 2 years apart in age, you know, they did all the high school stuff.
Kyle was really family oriented. He loved his family. He loved his brother very much, and he loved Kylie's brothers. Kyle could sit down and look at a picture and reproduce it. He was good at art. So I think that's why he wanted to go into architecture design.
Well, she just loved life, and I think she just lived life to the fullest, and that was what was really fun. And I think she had a way of sharing that energy and enthusiasm whenever she was around other people. And she'd always wanted to get a tattoo, and she said she'd want to get one, but she never told me she was going to go get one, and I didn't know what she was gonna get or wear. So she pulls up her arm, you know, she's right here, you know, and so I said, "Oh, what's it say?" And you know, and she says, "It's believe." And I said, "Well, what did you know, what were you thinking?" You know, she said, "Well, I really thought a lot about it, and it's because I believe in the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost." And so now, there are several of us that have a belief tattoo.
Whenever Kyle would come up, he was big on hugs. He never left or came to the house without giving me a hug. We were pretty close. I think as he grew up, maybe as he got a little older, kind of thought he was the man of the house, even though he was 6 years old, you know, that kind of thing.
She was my best friend, and it just, you know, she was a delight and the light of my life.
I think this was the first ski trip that they had taken.
And so we kind of had a whole crew there, and we rented a house in Winter Park. We decided to go out, and we all followed each other out there. And
so he left, gave me a hug, gave me a kiss, and I told him to have a good time. That's the last I saw him.
That day, Wednesday, that day they had to leave, we skied all day, and so they were leaving kind of later than what we wanted them to leave, but we had told them to be aware of the weather, and but also be aware if they're tired. You know, if you're tired, then you need to stop and haze.
Barbie and I both, neither one of us could have pleaded any harder with those kids to, you know, if you get tired, stop. Well, they were fine. It wasn't them. It was somebody else. So, you know, there's yeah, the what ifs, you know, you could think of hundreds of those and nothing would ever explain it.
Kyle's mom was really good about touching base and knowing where Kyle was, and so she was kind of tracking them on their way back to Wichita. So that was, you know, she'd talk to them, and I didn't talk to them after they left. I just knew they'd call me when they got home. So
10 o'clock that night, I told him, I said, if you need to stop, you stop. I will give you the money to get you guys a place to stay. You need to stop. Oh, we're fine. That was the last time that I had texted him. I went on to bed that night, and I knew they were supposed to be home about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I told him to text me, because he always texted me when he got back, no matter what time it was. And I remember waking up about 4 or 5 o'clock, and I hadn't heard. I checked my phone, and there wasn't a text. And so I texted him, home yet, with a question mark. I saw that text.
And Kylie's dad called, and he didn't know that they had that Kylie had left, because, you know, he wasn't there, and I wouldn't have thought to call him, neither would she. And so, but the car is registered, you know, in his name. So that's who they contacted him. And so he called and asked if Kylie was still, you know, if Kylie was still there. And I was like, no, but I knew the minute he called me and asked me that, I knew something that bad had happened. It was awful. But I remember looking outside, and the snow was the sun was coming up, and the snow was sparkling.
Probably about 8 o'clock in the morning, the sheriff showed up at our front door. And I was standing at my bedroom door, and he says, "It's the sheriff." And I said, "You know what?" And he came up and answered the door and let him in. And they asked us if Kyle was our son, and then they told us there had been an accident. And my first reaction is, well, where are they?
And we didn't know anything, you know, and they just knew that it was a guy going the wrong way on the highway. And that's all we knew for a long time. We didn't find out for a month later that he found out that he was really drunk.
And there were reports of one witness that had called into 911, reported that this guy had got on the road going the wrong way, and that he's going at a high rate of speed. He's going the wrong direction on the highway. And then all of a sudden he says, "There's flames."
She always wore this ring. And you don't have to know much more about how bad everything can be when this is the only thing that's left from how bad that wreck was.
when I remember talking to the coroner and telling him that, you know, I wanted to see him, he said I really didn't. So that's kind of hard to deal with. I mean, that's not the thought you want to have of your child.
I never saw the car. I don't have any desire to. The only way they can tell you that they're your kids, you have to call your dentist. I didn't need to see the car. I really believe that there's, you know, God's plan is not for me to figure out, and I think that I have to believe that there's a reason and for things that happen, and someday I'll know. They had a lot of fun, and they made a lot of friends. They impacted a lot of people. They touched a lot of people in their short lives.
I know at certain ages most kids think they're indestructible, but you know, they're not.
Enjoy life and enjoy everything, and I think that just to take in every minute and to savor it, and to not get caught up in everything else. And it's not all about partying.
No matter what you do, you need to think about not only the consequences for yourself, but how it's going to affect other people.